Hey students, your history teacher here. I hope week one is going well for you, and this video will briefly provide an overview for quiz number one. If you are taking this class online, hybrid, or web enhanced, the study guide for quiz number one can be found in the week one module or unit. If you are taking this class fully face-to-face, I will email you the study guide and this video. Now, quiz number one is based on the Florida Civic Literacy exam. The Florida State Legislature has established that all college and university students must take American government or U.S. history. At the same time, you are required to pass the Florida Civic Literacy exam with 60% to get your degree from Daytona State College. Again, this video will briefly break down that rather dense and long study guide for quiz number one and indicate a few things to really focus on and study. When it comes to the Florida Civic Literacy exam, you have 80 questions and there's 4 parts of the exam. Really, American democracy, the U.S. Constitution, the founding documents, and landmark Supreme Court cases and their impact on American law and society. Please understand, you'll really need to know what form of government the United States has in our country, why we honor and who we honor for Memorial Day and Veterans Day, and which branch of the federal government reflects the concept that governments derive their powers or authority from the governed, i.e. the people of the United States. So remember, the U.S. Constitution has 27 amendments and we have 7 sections in the U.S. Constitution. And the whole idea of the U.S. Constitution is that Article 1 indicates which branch of the federal government represents the people. And when it comes to Article 2 of the U.S. Constitution, it deals with the presidency, Article 3, the Supreme Court, and the other powers delineated under the U.S. Constitution. Moreover, you will need to understand how the Constitution operates. And the awesome thing about the United States of America is no one gets their way. The Founding Fathers were students of history and they understood how fragile democracies were and at the same time the limits of monarchies and absolutism. So the U.S. Constitution is really formulated on the notion of checks and balances, the separation of powers. So in that sense, Congress can check the presidency or the President of the United States of America, where at the same time, the President can check Congress through actions that are outlined in Article 2 of the U.S. Constitution. So please understand how the President or POTUS can check the power of Congress and how Congress can check the power of the POTUS or President. Briefly moving on, some other things to understand for quiz number one on the Florida Civic Literacy exam is you need to really comprehend the constitutional principles and the sense and the notion which document represents the supreme law of the United States, commonly known as the Supremacy Clause. This is pretty straightforward. It is actually outlined in Article 6, Clause 2 of the U.S. Constitution. So please understand that when it comes to the idea and concept of the Supremacy Clause. You will also need to understand which principle was included in the U.S. Constitution as a response to a concern expressed in the Declaration of Independence. And that really refers back to the checks and balances, and really the concern that a monarchy back in England exercised sole authority. Even in many instances, created a lot of contention with Parliament. So that ties into the development of the U.S. Constitution and the concerns expressed in the connection with the Declaration of Independence. So I put these as questions because these will appear on quiz number one, so you need to understand these questions. You need to be able to apply these questions, and there are also some sample questions at the end of quiz number one, study guide / Florida Civic Literacy exam study guide. Again, emailed to you if you're taking the face-to-face class or in the week one unit or module. Finally, you'll need to understand really what is outlined and the role of the U.S. Supreme Court in Article 3 of the U.S. Constitution. So you need to understand that when it comes to the U.S. Supreme Court, justices serve for life. that they are actually nominated by the President in the case of a Chief Justice and confirmed by the U.S. Senate. You will also need to understand how Supreme Court rulings actually overturn prior or previous Supreme Court rulings. In this case, 1896, Plessy v. Ferguson. You need to understand the case of Plessy v. Ferguson, what it established under the Supreme Court in 1896, and which Supreme Court case all the way down the road in 1954 actually overturned Plessy v. Ferguson. In summation, this video briefly reviewed quiz number 1, some things to really focus on in that study guide, and hopefully get you better prepared for the Florida Civic Literacy exam. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your week.